Back on the Young Turks. Now, we're hoping to have an interesting conversation with John LeBoutelier. He is a former Republican congressman, now a conservative commentator, and he's written an editorial called Get Osama and Leave Fox Alone. John, welcome to the Young Turks.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm sorry I had to change the schedule on you guys last week.
Oh, no, that's okay. And we're very happy to have you here. Looking forward to the conversation. So there's two parts of this. Let's start with the Afghanistan part. You say, go get Osama. Well, I couldn't agree more with that, and I think that's part of the reason that we should stay in Afghanistan for the moment being, and we've talked about that a lot on the show. How angry and irate were you at Dick Cheney and George Bush for being so incompetent for 7 years and not getting Osama bin Laden?
Well, I'll tell you, I was like one of the few Republican conservatives who came out all along and said these guys are a complete and utter fraud, and I was fired from Newsmax for saying as much, and I was with Newsmax when it began, and I got fired in 2001 after 9/11 when I kept getting on them saying they're full of baloney.
Well, I give you a world of credit for that, and you know, we see story after story. Like, for example, during the height of the surge, 160,000 troops in Iraq, 26,000 in Afghanistan. That means you're not really trying. And then the New York Times had an unbelievable story about how, and they had sources from commanders on the ground there, how we had Osama bin Laden cornered in 2003 in Tora Bora, and we had 36 guys on the ground going after him. 36.
Yeah. And I think along with all that, even when we let him off the hook and we're close to him, I don't think we ever devoted the intelligence resources, the money, the soldiers themselves, all the stuff that goes into tracking down one person in a large area. Now, they did put all that into getting Saddam Hussein. Even in a country that we occupied, it took us from March to December to catch the guy. So it's not an easy job, but we did it. We can do it. If we want to do it from the Oval Office on down, if you really want to do something with the tremendous power that the presidency has, you can do it. But I don't think either President Bush or Obama yet has gotten out of bed and said to the staff, okay, all I care about and all I'm going to care about. So if you want to make me happy, all you're going to care about is tracking down and finding this guy, and let's kill him.
Well, let me ask you, though, one last question on that front, on the Obama front on Afghanistan, because, look, we agree on what Bush and Cheney did, and I thought when they got Saddam Hussein, if we can find that guy in a spider hole in the middle, like literally buried in a small hole in the ground in Iraq, why can't we find bin Laden? That means you don't really want to find him. You don't want to put the effort behind it for whatever reason, right?
Yeah, right.
Now, when we go to Obama, though, he's certainly squeezing him. He's convinced the Pakistani army to now go into South Waziristan. They went into Swat Valley earlier. They're squeezing him from the south. We're squeezing him from the north. We've gotten 15 out of the top 20 al-Qaeda leaders in just the last 9 months or so. We got the guy in Somalia who was the head of al-Qaeda in that area with an excellent special operations force that went in there. And then we got the leader of the Taliban in Pakistan, Baitullah Masood. So doesn't it seem like he's really on the right direction here?
Well, but I think all of that is good. I'm not critical of any of it, but I think it's all done with the concurrence of the Pakistani government and military, because those are threats to the existence of the Pakistani government and military. Osama bin Laden is a special case. He is the single most popular person in Pakistan. And I'm not sure the Pakistani ISI, which is their version of our CIA, I think they're playing both sides of this thing. And they'll happily take our money and tell us what we want to hear. But at the same time, they're protecting Osama bin Laden. And that is at the brunt of the problem we're talking about. We're going to have to go find them ourselves, not rely on the Pacs to help us.
We've been playing this game for quite a while with Pakistan, but I see very good results so far. So I've definitely got an open mind on how Obama's been handling that problem in Pakistan. So now let's go to the second part of your article here. We're talking to John LeBoutelier. He is a former Republican congressman and now conservative commentator. You say he should leave Fox alone. But, John, here's an organization that attacks him day in and day out. You were a congressman. You're a politician. If somebody was doing that to you day in and day out, wouldn't you fight back?
No, I go on. I fight back by going on their show and showing their audience I don't have horns. I'm a nice guy, and I pick off some of their audience and turn them towards me. And that's what I thought Obama was all about a year ago. That he was like a Reagan who reveled in trying to convert people to his point of view, not with the Bush, hey, you're either with me or you're against me, it's my way or the highway kind of thing. It's a smile, a chuckle, a little bit of humor, and, oh, by the way, here's a side of this issue that you might not have thought of before, and boom, if he did that, he could get 20% of the Fox audience to walk away and say, you know, that guy's a pretty good guy.
I'm not convinced you can get 20% of the Fox audience to be reasonable under any circumstance.
Oh,
but,
I think don't demean the audience when you think of some of the odious on-air personnel. They are not reflective of the people who necessarily watch them.
No, I base that on polls where there is no group that votes more Republican Party line, et cetera, than the Fox audience. So I think they're a very hard group to convince.
Let's remember something. A year ago, Obama got 20% of the Republican Party to vote for him.
Yeah, but I don't think he got 20% of the Fox News audience. I think they're more harder core. But let's leave that aside for a second.
I've seen studies that 40% of the Fox audience are Democrats and independents.
Yeah, I did not see that study. But, you know, if you send it to me, I'd love to take a look at it because that is interesting. So, John, but let's talk about this because Obama is not just saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to show them by denying them access for a couple of months because then he says he's willing to go back on in 2010. What he's doing is he's starting a conversation where we have a discussion on whether Fox News is a real news organization or if they do opinion and Republican propaganda. And isn't that a conversation that helps the president, given that he's obviously correct, that they are against them, that they do Republican propaganda, that they are conservative, and not just playing it down the middle?
No, well, I mean, look at the results since he started this war. Ratings have never been higher for Fox. He's increased their ratings, number one.
They were already high.
They were, but they're higher now. Chase Carey, the vice president of News Corp, said we couldn't pay for this kind of publicity and marketing boost. Number two, his ratings have never been lower. I mean, Obama's line is directly down since June 1st.
No, that's not true.
Oh,
now,
it is true.
No, look, it came down for a long period of time after attack after attack after attack, but it actually bounced back up in the last month or so. I don't think that has anything to do with the Fox issue.
Well, no, maybe not, but
okay.
It's the attitude of Obama where he's now playing the same game that Bush played, which is let's divide up my base against your base.
It's not a matter of the bases, John. I think what he's trying to do is tell the rest of the media, you guys keep treating this as a news organization and keep following their lead on all of these stories, whether they make sense, and you might say Van Jones made sense. Some people certainly believe that. But you take one like the death panels, that doesn't make any sense. And he's saying you should at least be looking at it as from a wary eye because they're partisan press. So if Air America feeds you a story, you look at it with a wary eye. Fox News sends, and both stories might be legitimate, but at least recognize that they're partisan press.
Well, let me just say something. All the press is partisan one way or the other. All of it has a bias to it. And the president should be above that. He should go on anything he's invited on and appeal directly to the people. And, you know, your strategy, which is don't go on there because he can't win the 20% of the audience, well, let's say he could win 15%. Where does it say that a politician shouldn't be trying to talk to all Americans, all
John,
of them?
No, that is definitely not what I'm saying, okay? All I'm saying is for him to do this in the short term, and that's all they're saying here. He's going to go back on in 2010. They offer other White House officials to this day. The only reason that he's not doing it is to shine a spotlight on this. And that's the part I agree with. Because if you don't shine a spotlight on it, CNN and all the others, ABC, NBC, pretend that the stories coming out of Fox are straight news stories, when they're not. They have a conservative slant. And anyone can see that, right. Except these guys.
I know, but I mean, I can find you on MSNBC and CBS News. There's a liberal slant on there. I mean, so what? I mean, that's always been the case in American politics. Every newspaper, every news organization has a slant. Some are more blatant than others.
John, we got a minute left, so let me hit you with the so what real quick. Look,
Okay.
yeah, does Bob Schieffer do an opinion segment at the end of his show? Yes, he does. Does that mean Bob Schieffer puts opinion all over Face the Nation? No, I don't think he does. I think he can separate it to some degree. MSNBC has opinion shows, no question about it, but they also do straight news, in my opinion, during the day. The real so what is when Fox News, for example, in 2000, hires George Bush's cousin to call the election.
Right.
They call the election first. The rest of the news organizations panic because, oh, my God, Fox News called it. And so they all call it when it's actually a statistical tie.
Right.
And then that winds up affecting news tremendously. That's the so what. That's what we have to avoid.
Well, all of that is absolutely true. But that has nothing to do, in my view, with the role of the President of the United States. Is his job now to be using the power of the presidency to teach the other four networks that their competition, who's beating them in the ratings, by the way, is a biased right-wing adjunct of the RNC? You don't think they already know this?
Apparently they don't, because
Well,
they keep following Fox.
They all know it. They all know it, and they couldn't care less because in the back of their minds, any of them would be happy to go over and get a big paycheck out of Rupert Murdoch, and half
Bingo.
of them do.
Bingo, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's why they're defending Fox News.
That's why for the president to squander a minute of his time getting involved in this is a waste of his time. He should just use the media for himself. Go on the show, laugh at Sean Hannity and say, oh, come on, Sean, you know that's not true. Let me tell you the story about why I'm doing this on healthcare. And beat that guy at his own game. That's the way to do it. We
have a disagreement on that because I think it's an effective counterattack and it's a good way of framing it. But I love this conversation. I think it was. I really appreciate you coming on, and everybody should check out LeBoutlier.blogspot.com.
JohnLaboute.com is the easy way to go there.
All right,
JohnLebout, JohnLaboute.com.
There you go, JohnLaboute.com. Thank you so much for coming on.
Okay, and thanks for having me. Let's do it again.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Young Turks.